the transdisciplinary theme, who we are. In the PYP, there are 6 transdisciplinary themes, and they all have descriptors that go underneath them that capture our human commonalities globally, and they're all of global significance. So we have our central idea, which is our big understanding. This is what we want students to walk away with. Standing up for our beliefs and values may cause conflict. And so from there, we have our key concepts. Teachers collaboratively with their teams think about what are the concepts that are going to drive our instruction. What are the concepts that the kids need to be aware of to be able to get to understand this central idea. And then related concepts of conflict, and then our lines of inquiry. And those drive us to this big understanding that standing up for our beliefs and values may cause conflict. So if you look at this, you don't see an SOL attached to it, but that's where we bring in our SOLs. So this unit right here is where our teachers teach American Revolution. But it's also where our PE teachers might teach when you have a conflict and you think something should go this way, or if you have a certain value or a certain belief, it may cause a conflict, and this is how we solve it. So we really dive into looking at perspective, different perspectives, and appreciating those, and then causes for conflicts and how they're solved. So I think that it's a lot different than the way that I was taught to teach, and kids come away with a great understanding and a deeper understanding. So it's not just about the American Revolution, it's about I have beliefs and values that might cause a conflict, but other people believe things too, and I appreciate that, or I can understand that, or I can relate to that. So this is just an example of what that looks like for each theme.
So following that, you have the MYP program, which is very similar in terms of having concepts set in a context that guide us. So while the PYP has transdisciplinary themes, and there are 6 of those, the MYP has 6 global contexts, and they actually really do follow each other. So for example, who we are as the transdisciplinary theme in PYP becomes identities and relationships as an MYP global context. And so that was purposefully done when the MYP was revised to help bridge that continuum a little bit better. So instead of having a central idea, we have a statement of inquiry, and this statement sets the purpose of the unit. You can see from the color coding here that it has our key concept, our related concepts, and our global context exploration in it. And similarly to the central idea in PYP, there is no content area evident here. So the idea is that we are able to transfer these statements. I could take it from one unit plan in one class and put it in another, and it is through the content of those individual subjects that the students dive into these concepts. This one comes from Year 4, which is grade 9, Individuals and Societies, which is World Civ 2. I want to give a shout out to that team, which is also why I put this on here. They came in and did tremendous work over the summer, and the future 9th graders get to explore some amazing stuff this year with that team. And through this statement of inquiry, their content is looking at changes politically, economically, culturally, and in religion, starting with the Reformation. So when we think about those changes and that they were innovative, some of them may have caused revolution, there were causes there, and it definitely created change, that's the way that the students will be able to unpack those concepts. They'll then see change numerous times in all of their subjects, and they'll be able to explore what change can mean in math, what change can mean in science, all set in a global context so that they can make sense of what it means in the larger world.
No, mine comes after all of the wonderful pictures.
Oh, my pictures. My favorite part. So the PYP model, if you think back to that framework, it's shifted. It's a little bit different than the other two programs. So it focuses on the learner, learning and teaching, and the learning community, and how students can have agency within that. So this is just a picture of one of our first grade classrooms, and it shows like our learning community is very kid-centered, student-centered. Students have choice of where they want to sit, where they learn best. This particular picture is of our first grade students doing their animal research to support one of their central ideas. The picture on the right comes from a fifth grade classroom, and this is a group of students who at the beginning of the year are setting their essential agreements for their classroom. What do they want their classroom to look like, feel like, sound like? And so they set the tone for the year, and they talk about what they value, what's important, what's a learning space where they want to come to every day. And so they set those norms and those agreements for themselves.
I think if you go back to that question we asked you near the very beginning is what did your education look like and feel like? And if you look at the picture, I think on the left, you can see that it is a very different kind of classroom than everybody just lined up in rows and reciting the alphabet.
So this is just some snapshots of some of our kids involved in inquiry. Our first grade, how we organize ourselves. This is a provocation that they had to kind of get them thinking about their unit with the central idea, living things make choices based on wants or needs. And let me see if I can find they had a statement. Oh no, your plane has run out of fuel, you're stranded. What 10 things do you need to survive, and what 10 things do you want? So they had to sit there and look at these different pictures and really discuss, is that a want or is that a need to jumpstart their unit of study? And on the third, we have a How the World Works unit, where the central idea is understanding scientific principles helps people respond to challenges and opportunity. And they're just very engaged in their experiment there. And at this point, they were learning about scientific principles and going through the scientific method. And then these are just some examples of our exhibition groups, their final projects you'll see in a few of the pictures, and you can just see the pride in their faces. And then a couple of the groups with their mentors who took time out of their schedule to come meet with them. There were all of the groups had an expert interview where they dug a little bit deeper into what they were researching. And the little board underneath exhibition, the picture with all of the little sticky notes, that was just an interactive display of how we can engage our audience when we were talking about our learning and sharing it out with the community. Oh, I love this one. So this is a kindergarten, this picture, this sharing the planet, living things depend on one another for survival. So this kindergarten teacher took these children through a little mapping activity where they brainstorm the idea of interdependence. And so they talked about how animals provide food for people and people protect endangered animals. And then my favorite is, well, how animals provide friendship and love for people. It made my heart melt. But anyway, so this is just the level of thinking that they're already doing in kindergarten. And then the other picture, I won't read it all. This was a student in third grade. The third grade teachers are required to do a performance-based assessment for social studies and science from the state, and they were able to integrate this into their units of study to do a year-long study that tied in. So this child reflected on every single central idea that they had, and he wrote them in his own words. It was pretty impressive. He wrote it so it made sense to him to really show his conceptual understanding. These are from a fifth grade class. Feedback is a huge part of the IB program. This is an example of how it's not just feedback from the teacher, but these are students who are giving peer feedback. They are going around, they are reading one another's work, and based on a rubric, they are looking at the work and giving feedback. You can even see on that one computer, there's a sticky note stuck right onto the computer for the presentation that student had there. So they're very thoughtful. It's great to get feedback from the teacher, but it's also very powerful to get it back from your peers. And that's it for me. Sorry, thank you for letting me share that.
So this slide shows some teachers in action with their collaboration. We had an opportunity to work across schools. George Mason and Mary Ellen Henderson, language acquisition teachers, came together. And in these photos, we stepped way back and we looked back at those 4 pillars of what is an IB education, centering on the learners, fostering international mindedness, et cetera. And they looked at it through the lens in terms of how does their subject group actually support those aims of an IB education. And so they're doing a gallery walk here and thinking about that. And then they came together, and that's the work of building a scope and sequence, of looking at the concepts and the skills and making sure that there's a true progression vertically for this subject group from 6th grade through 10th grade of both the skills, the assessments, and the concepts.
And if I can. The first picture, I'm sorry, I thought I was done, but I'm not. That's our 3rd grade team doing some summer collaboration work. This year is a rollout of the new SOLs for science, and since they have the performance-based assessment, this was them coming back to their units of inquiry and figuring out how to make those science standards, see if they can fit, or do we need to revise some of our central ideas and our learning engagements to make it really authentic for them. So it's a messy process, but it's a necessary process to get where we need to be.
And here are some photos of the 8th grade community projects last year and the 10th grade personal projects. So we had students create sort of a community bridge.
Keep going.
Okay, from 5th grade to 6th grade by interviewing 5th grade students and helping them think about their next steps in middle school. We had students bring awareness of all the animal shelters in the area. And then for personal projects, these students dived into their passion. So one girl grew her own herb garden and baked with the herbs. The green machine was a boat made out of bamboo and all recycled materials, and he actually tested it and it floated. And the girl in the top right, she wanted to explore 3 different art genres as an art student and display her work with that.
Can I just offer an observation? I've been to both of the 2 last exhibitions for the personal projects, and it's just been fascinating to see the range of things that the students are doing. It's one of the best nights, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
So we have less than 5 minutes left. So fortunately, I just have one slide. So we talked about TOK, and Justin, you asked if students who aren't in the TOK course, do they get exposure? And I was reminded by Mr. Hills that yes, they do. All of our students in DP classes, the TOK is infused. And when I say TOK is infused, questions like that, which was an actual prompt for the TOK kids, that's something that the content teachers also infuse into their lessons as well. And I know that's happening because last year we had the brainstorm of having our TOK students put into a Google form where they were exposed to TOK practices in their other classes. And I have a beautiful spreadsheet showing where it's happening throughout the school, and it's wonderful to see. So even if a student's not in TOK, if they're in a diploma class, they are getting exposure to this type of philosophical thinking. When you look at that prompt, we talk about a conceptual education, and here's my one example. Imagine the rubric that would be accompanying that, and there is a rubric. But notice the rubric doesn't talk so much about content, right? How could it? But it does talk about perspective, balance, counter-arguments, counter-claims, and how you support a thesis. And I've got somebody over here shaking her head, yeah. I remember saying once to a bunch of IB diploma students who come back to pick up their diplomas at a ceremony, I said, the beauty about TOK is there's no like one right answer. And one of the students said, well, yeah, but Mr. Scharf, their teacher at the time, said there's a whole lot of wrong answers. And I said, yeah, I can see that.